just joining us, a very warm welcome. And if you've been here for the rest of the day, then well done on hanging in there. It's good to see everybody. So as with the other sessions, we've got 3 speakers. Each will speak for 15 minutes, followed by 10 minutes of questions and answers. So we'll do questions and answers straight after each speaker, not holding them all to the end. So first up, we have Daniela Savino, who's addressing us on the Augustinian approach to the theory of teaching methods. So over to you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Daniela Savino. I'm coming from Italy, and I'm a teacher of philosophy. I would like to start this presentation by telling you something about the teaching methods within the philosophy of Augustine of Hippo. Augustine of Hippo is a philosopher who belongs to the late antiquity. But let's start by telling this quotation of Nigel Tubbs, who says in his Philosophy of the Teacher that educational theory and philosophy of education have developed a variety of different camps, each pointing out contradiction in the other's argument, but few making the experience of this opposition the substance on philosophical inquiry. So my research is not based, is not a kind of an empirical research, is more a philosophical research. So don't ask me about collecting data, because it would be something different, and I hope you can enjoy it. The content of my own research is actually looking for a philosophy of the teacher. What does it mean in philosophical terms? I'm talking about, and I want to look at method. What is method in teaching? Recalling Tubbs, we may have to put philosophy in education and education in philosophy, linking those 3 focuses: philosophy, education, and method. So, researching a theory of method in teaching will include those 3 main focuses: philosophy, education, and method. I think to better understand what I'm looking for is both. To tell you something about my background, because as you can see, I have been teaching philosophy both in Italy and in the UK, and have spotted a lot of differences in terms of delivering lessons, lesson planning, teaching materials. And at a first glance, I have been thinking, why, how we have such a different school system, such a different method in teaching. So that's why I decided to start this doctoral research about teaching method. Researching the roots of the differences, I came to this conclusion that there are kind of, the 2 countries have been influenced by their own philosophical matrix, which are reflected in their philosophical, in their school system, and delivering lessons and lesson planning, everything about teaching. So I can see it, but obviously this is what my research is. So I need to extrapolate from my teaching experiences the philosophical backgrounds that have formed the 2 different teaching methods within the 2 countries. And as it is well known, we have analytical tradition formed in the Anglo-Saxon, Anglophone world, and a continental tradition in the European world, let's say. So I found 2 philosophical approaches. One that belongs to Augustine of Hippo, and one that belongs to CLIL, which is a short for Content and Language Integrated Learning, which is the latest methodology used in Europe and in Italy specifically to teach philosophy by the medium of English language. What I'm doing is researching a theory of method in teaching philosophy, and what I found in CLIL as philosophical background is the utilitarianism. So I'm talking about CLIL and Augustine of Hippo, and I'm just stating a comparison making a comparison between those two philosophical matrix that have influenced our school system, let's say. So in philosophical terms, my research could concern the concept of method between utilitarianism and Augustinian philosophy. Why did I choose Augustine of Hippo? Because I believe that recalling an ancient author to shed some light on our contemporaneity is always useful. So going back to the classic authors, I found it always useful, really, really clarifying. So this theory of method within Augustinian utilitarianism, as is shown in CLIL, it will be the concept of the core of my research. What I'm doing now is just to show you the steps that I'm going to present in my research. So first of all, identifying the research question. Second, giving a definition of the concept of method within Augustinian philosophy and utilitarianism as CLIL's philosophical background. 3, making a comparison between the two perspectives. 4, developing a new conception of method in the light of the comparison of these philosophies. 5, investigating the kinds of skills, this is the most important thing, investigating the kinds of skills that can be fostered in both teachers and students, because teachers still study as students, as a result of the comparison of these two approaches, specifically with the view to the development of criteria in the light of which students can better interpret reality. Because I do think that the interpretation of reality has to be the outcome of any kind of teaching. And last, giving the new curriculum proposal following the Augustinian methods. So while we're looking for a theory of method in teaching within the two traditions, we are dealing with education and method, and this is exactly what is what we are talking about, the knowledge itself, because knowledge is the heart of teaching learning process. In order to do that, we have to trace the general lines of the Augustinian theory of knowledge, reading his masterworks, Confessiones de Magistro de Trinitate. Everything is written in Latin, obviously. And I just wanted to say something more about this theory of knowledge. What I found out in the UK, lesson planning and way of teaching, it was a kind of, the concept of knowledge was not really clear. While we are teaching here, I found out that we are just passing information to students, and we are just teaching them how to work out a piece of a worksheet or an exercise. We are not giving them the ability of really know the truth of what we are teaching. So this is my attempt to understand if there is another way of teaching to let students understand better the truth of what they are studying. I shall hereafter consider it, so the theory of knowledge of Agostino of Hippo, as a model of method in teaching. Okay, so about the research questions, got kind of a few. The first one is, within the general theory of knowledge, which kind of theory of method can be delineated in Augustinian philosophy? Why do I need to find a theory of method? Because Augustine talks about theory of knowledge, and this is known as illumination, so very particular, very specific, but there's nothing really structured about theory of method, but it lies in there, so I need to develop this concept. While in CLIL approach, or within UK, we have a very standard way of teaching. We know, as a procedure, we know how do we have to know all the steps that we have to follow in order to teach. So it's, as you can see, they are really, really different way, okay? Within the CLIL teaching practice, which kind of theory of method emerges, this is really clear. Then we need to explore in the philosophical backgrounds that have formed the two theories of method. How has utilitarianism affected teaching method in the UK and so in CLIL teaching practice, so the philosophical backgrounds? Which is the core of Augustinian philosophy regarding his theory of method? How can those theories of method be applied in teaching philosophy as a subject? How can we create a new curriculum proposal in teaching philosophy following the new method? Then the second point was giving a definition of method. This is really interesting because within the Augustinian philosophy, we see metatonodon. So the word method, the word and the concept of method means going through the way. Metatonodon, method, is exactly the Greek word, which is going through the way. But within CLIL, we see that method is procedure, just a procedure to follow. Okay, so let's give briefly a reading of Confessions 10, chapter 10, line 6, which is the masterpiece of Augustine. It talked about it wants to know God, which is not an easier object to know, but by looking at it, I think we can understand how we can know, how we can come to know any other object. Okay. So he says, what do I love when I love thee? And about love is not intended as a sentimental way, okay? But love for Augustine is a faculty of knowledge. Okay? And what is it? This is the most important philosophical questions. Okay, what is it? And here you can find the method that Augustine follows in order to look for God, you know, to find an answer. I asked the earth and it answered me, I'm not she. I asked the sea and the deeps, and they answered, we're not thy God, seek above us. And I turned myself into myself and said to myself, who are you? And they answered, a man. And behold, he made them present themselves to me, soul and body, one without, the other within. By which of these ought I to seek my God? So this is the question, which kind of faculties do I have to use in order to know any object? We take God as the most important one. So let's go on because it's I need to finish. These things, that's the final point of Augustinian method. These things did my inner man know by the ministry of the outer. I, the inner, knew them. I, the mind, through the senses of my body. So as you can see, Augustine shows a way to follow through the senses, ascending up to the mind, up to the reason, in order to know things. I do believe that this, it might be the thing that a student needs in order to know things. And I'm talking about those kind of transferable skills that a student needs to learn while his or her teacher is delivering a lesson. Instead of giving them a simple procedure to follow that can't be exported in terms of skills in other contexts. Okay, another one. So Augustine shows how to inquire, ascending from the outer man who uses the senses in order to know something, to the inner man who reaches the concept of things by using reason, the reason. So the method of reaching the knowledge of God delineated above could be extended to any subject. And the method, the way pursued in order to search, could as well be pursued for any object of knowledge, as we said before. Conversely, having a look at CLIL teaching practice and its philosophical background, we can see that the modern literature, specific to the field of education, is taking for granted that a method is a procedure to follow. And here we have an example, some of you have the handout, of teaching materials relating to two British philosophers within empiricists. epistemology, Thomas Hobbes and David Hume. As you can see, they present a philosophy lesson by giving some information about the philosophers and their own philosophy. With a worksheet, with kind of exercise, there are kind of table completion, there are filling the gaps exercises. So the students are really, really good at working out these sheets, but they don't really learn what is the core of the philosophy of that philosopher, how that philosophy could be useful for his own life, because they don't really learn a method for life and to know any other things. Okay. So it seems to be that by using filling the gaps exercise, that student can learn how to fill that single gap without learning how to go through other parts of knowledge and eventually of life. This last thing leads us to the central part of my research, whose part I just started to explore.
Thank you. So we can open for questions. Anybody who has a question? Yeah.
Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Very nice. So, I had two thoughts rising. I'm Italian as well, so
Well, that's a good start.
so I did philosophy at really high school, and we actually do history of philosophy. They don't teach us to do philosophy on our life, like to apply philosophy on our life. So that is the first point. So we actually know that we are doing history and not philosophy in itself. And then the second one is you talk about truth. Okay, so for Augustine, God is truth. I don't know it. I mean, it was like God. But what about about critical knowledge? I mean, what about if truth doesn't really exist? Why should we aim to get the truth?
Yeah. Okay. No, well, let's start from the first question, which is really interesting. Actually, there is a current debate on how do we teach philosophy in Italy, because this is an ancient question, because there was a debate between Kant and Hegel. Obviously, this kind of debate that we are studying, because they didn't speak one another. But the problem is we are the way in which we teach philosophy in Italy is exactly the thing that you just said. So we do history of philosophy, but within the history of philosophy, we present to students the texts. So we are able to give students the possibility to study the history of philosophy so that they can have an overview about the development of concepts throughout 2,000 years. So I know what Socrates said about freedom or virtues or knowledge, and then Plato and Aristotle, and then Augustine, and then Thomas Aquinas, and then René Descartes and Thomas Hobbes and Hume, up to Heidegger in school. Students are able to understand how one concept in problematic way has been developed through the centuries. And that gives them the flexibility of understanding and of thinking about different models. So I think this is really important. But at the same time, we do teach them how to philosophize. That's what Hegel said. Okay, how to philosophize. So by presenting Le Discours sur la méthode, for example, about René Descartes, students are able to learn a philosophical language, to learn a philosophical way of present arguments, Okay, and then they learn as well the different styles. So sometimes I sometimes I give them different text, and then I let them guess who is the author after having learned the history of philosophy, and then I ask them, who is it, Aristotle or Plato? And then they are able to answer. Okay, so we are teaching, we are enriching our curriculum in teaching methods by teaching them the history of philosophy, but also in problematic way, so in horizontal and in vertical way. So that's a very good question. But the second one about the truth, I don't think that we have to think about truth in objective way or in absolute way or in Christian way or other philosophies. Okay, well, I mean by truth I mean let's try to understand if there is something which is more appropriate. Let's say in a different way. I can say, for example, with my children, I can say if something is good or not. Why? Because I got some criteria in my reason that allow me to judge that's good, that's not. Okay? This is what I mean for truth of something. The truth knowledge of an object, whether it's math or it's way of behaving with people. What is the truth of what I'm knowing now? Okay.
So it's a multiple, like multiple.
No, the truth of, for example,
there are some circumstances.
If you think about friendships, what's the truth of this friendship?
Yeah, but it's always historically and socially embedded. So in that circumstance, you have that kind of truth about friendship, but it's squarely located in. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. But this is not, in opposition with the thing that we said before.
There's another question.
I actually just want to ask about your conception of CLIL, or what you're comparing, because I'm still a bit unclear when you made the link from UK context straight to CLIL. Maybe you could explain in terms of what you're comparing again.
The way in which we present a lesson.
But in what context is it two different experiences that you've had personally? Because you've talked about Italy, Britain, and then CLIL, well, and my understanding of CLIL is a foreign language.
Yeah, method. But okay. Well, I've been teaching philosophy in Italy as a teacher of philosophy, and
in
then I moved here in Italy, and in Italian. Although I present British philosopher in English.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
And then I moved here and I started to teach philosophy here with Latin in England. And
English.
In England, in English. In here.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just trying to understand
a
conception of CLIL then as
not. Yes. I'm about to tell you. So last year in Italy, we had this this guideline from our national curriculum that it will be compulsory to teach a subject in a foreign language, in English. And I was more than happy to do that. But having taught here and having seen, yes, this kind of way of teaching, this is kind of, I won't say that I don't agree with everything, within the English way of teaching.
But why would Italian CLIL method import British curricula necessarily?
No, I'm not stating a comparison in terms of judging who is I'm talking about the enrichment of curriculum in Italy. Okay, this is CLIL methodology. Okay, it will be compulsory, and it is a thing.
So it's a curriculum that's imported, not the method, or, I mean, as in, okay, and maybe it's the different conceptions of CLIL as an approach.
Clean is the latest methodology, okay, that we have to teach in Italy. So we have to teach a subject in foreign language, okay. The thing that worries me is that if I'm teaching the metaphysics, okay, of Aristotle, I cannot teach it in this way. Yeah. Students won't be able to understand the truth and the core of Aristotle philosophy. So the risk that we're running is that we can lose both English and philosophy by teaching philosophy in this way.
So it's the language is actually constraining the
yes.
method. And I wonder, my philosophical question is, does it have to? And that, you know, I'm interested that your
yes,
immediate...
you got the point. The problem is, we want to learn English, okay, all over the world. And that's beautiful, and that's great. And we want to enrich European curriculum by teaching English, by teaching a subject in English, okay. But this is not the right way, in my opinion, to do it, because the English that we use to teach this content is not appropriate, is not really appropriate, because it's simplified in order for students to understand the philosophical concept, and at the same time, the philosophical concept expressed in this kind of English and in this kind of way are not presented to the students in the right way. Because if I have to teach Aristotle, I have to teach them something about Plato before, something about Socrates before, and I cannot give them a fill in the gap exercise. It's really, that's, as you said, it's not an enrichment, it's a kind of, where, putting, how do you say? The opposite of impoverishment. Impoverishment.
Thank you for
Wait, you have to stop us there.
Sorry.
I think you've raised lots of really interesting issues that I'm sure after